Hi, I'm Connie Whitman, your host, and you're listening to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. Thanks so much for joining us this week. So my motivational quote today is by Karyn Rizzo, and she says, "Failure to plan ahead is a plan sure to fail." So let's talk about having this plan for the future. Specifically, how many of you have a plan for the future in regards to who will be taking care of you when you get older? I'll bet many of you listening are facing this situation, maybe with your moms and dads, and these questions are probably hitting pretty close to home. I know they are for me and for my guest today. So how many of you have aging parents that need your assistance and probably need your assistance right now? And I'll bet all of you, if you're not going through it, you know someone whose parents perhaps have dementia or some other type of debilitating issue that prevents them from getting around and maybe enjoying what's left of their life. Now, when things seem to change suddenly with an elderly parent, it could be startling, and that because your parents, you've relied on your parents, and now suddenly they're asking for help, or that role has been reversed. So the key question that needs to be asked is, how do we manage this new normal so that we can focus on enjoying this aging person that we love so dearly while still getting them the opportunity to have the quality of life for the duration of their life? Well, my guest today is Vlad Zeranovsky, and Vlad, he's been on before, so he will look familiar. He's going to share some strategies and ways and things to think about to approach perhaps this devastating family situation. And maybe we can do it before the tragedy strikes. Now, Vlad is the CEO of Craner LLC and has more than probably 20 years of experience in his role as a wealth manager. He's been in the trenches with family in crisis and has helped them forge ahead with a plan. Now, even if you are not currently facing this situation, getting prepared for it will make all the difference in the world. So get ready for some real key strategies. Vlad always gives so much great insight that maybe you can use now, but maybe you can use in the near future. So Vlad, as always, thank you so much for being on the show.
Wonderful to be here with you.
Yeah, we always have these great conversations about money and about, how to prepare for the future. And we've never had a show talking about, okay, we have these aging parents. What are more than their finances? What are other things we should be thinking about? So what do you find, because you've been doing this for so long now, what are typical topics that you find yourself educating your clients on as it relates to having aging parents?
It's, as a matter of fact, right before the show started, you and I discussed that I'm going through this myself with my parents, who live in a house that's much too big for two of them at this point. My father can't take care of landscaping anymore. And obviously the show came at a pretty interesting moment in my life as well, because now I am emotionally involved. So as funny as it may sound, common sense is not that common. To look at your parents and realize that they are aging, and then that you do need to be aware of it, that maybe it's not a good idea to have your mother or your father walk up and down the stairs to their bedrooms on the second floor. Maybe they need to downsize and move into a one-story house, or maybe they need to look at an adult community where it's not a nursing home. You have an independent apartment or independent standalone house, and you just know that there are people around who will watch your parents, because obviously all of us have to work. So I hope I'm kind of, setting up the conversation for our show.
Absolutely. And you gave me such a great quote before we started the show that you just read. Just share it, because I thought it was a really nice quote.
Which one was it?
The one, God, you put me on the spot. The one about getting older, right? There's there's a blessing in it, but the word wasn't blessing that you said. We all age.
Oh, yes. So life is given to everybody, but growing old is given to exceptional.
Yes. So we are lucky
So
enough.
it really is true.
Yeah, so we are
Right.
lucky enough to have the exceptional parent, because I
Correct.
too, and Vlad and I were talking, my mom and dad are 88 and 90, live independently. But there's things we have to start thinking about because we are working, like Vlad said. So there's a lot that goes into helping moms and dad versus just worrying about their money, which, don't get me wrong, is such a key component to make sure that their estate is organized properly. So we're talking about the home, right? So if the appropriateness of the home, again, like you said, upstairs, downstairs, ranches, whatever it might be, is one
Right.
of the
Right.
first things that we should be aware of, to make sure that our parents are safe. What are some of the recommendations that you give your clients so that they themselves can be aware, or their children could be aware as the parent ages?
You obviously want to, and I know it's difficult to schedule the time. As funny as it may sound, right? I think the motto for the 21st century is whether you're 5 or 95, everyone is busy. Everyone's busy. You talk to anyone, you catch up with your friends or colleagues or clients. How are you doing? I am busy. Everyone's busy. You could be sitting on the couch, but you're still busy. So I do want to be clear that you do need to find some time and you need to assess the situation, like exactly what I'm dealing with right now. The house that my parents live in, they've been there for about 20 years. At this point, although they've done an amazing job upkeeping it, they're just things that normally deteriorate and they need to be revamped, they need to be repainted. And you look at this and go, okay, well, how realistic is it to spend? And it's not like $2,000 to paint a couple rooms and that's it. It's thousands upon thousands and thousands of dollars. So then you go to yourself, well, do I want for my parents to go into their nest egg and now spend the money to continue sustaining the house that's much too big for two of them? Or do we sell the house? Do we take the proceeds, buy something smaller, and then they can spend some money to renovate it to their liking? So these are the conversations that we have in more occasions than anyone can possibly imagine. And then another piece of all of this is we live in northern New Jersey. Taxes here and the way of life is absolutely crazy expensive. We've, in recent 3 years, and especially within the past couple of years with the new tax code, we've had droves of clients move down to North Carolina, South Carolina, down to Georgia, down to Florida, because that's where the way of life is much more sustainable for someone who is living at a fixed income, Social Security and maybe some investments.
Well, are your parents looking to move out of New Jersey just because you have the kids? So that's
No,
another
no,
thing. They're not. They're
right.
looking to stay. But see, you
Correct.
bring up a really good point. People are in retirement age. New Jersey is exceedingly expensive to live in. But you want to be near the grandkids. So again, that's where the planning comes in for all of my 40s, 50s, 60 years old people listening. We have to have a plan so that when we do retire, we can retire the way we want to, and not because of not having enough money to stay in New Jersey or whatever state you perhaps live in. And it's funny, my in-laws, they just sold their house, Vlad, I was telling you before we started the show, and they're doing that. They have a Center Hall Colonial, and they are switching to a smaller house, a ranch local to us. It's an independent home. Again, they're 86, but the grounds are taken care of. The shoveling, because we're in New Jersey, we do get snow. Shoveling is taken care of, but they still can have their little garden and do because they love being outside. They still have the capacity to do that. So we have to be aware, and I like how you said, schedule the time, or when you're with your mom and dad on holidays. Father's Day, right, is just passed, and so we have Father's Day and all these things. Pay attention
Right.
when you're with your parents so that we can see what's really going on in their space. Now, you mentioned the activities, like your dad doesn't want to do the landscaping anymore, right? He
Correct.
doesn't really have the wherewithal to do that. What are some
Right.
things we should look for as it relates to our parents continuing to live independently? But what are some of the activities? Again, I just want to raise everyone's awareness.
Correct. Of course, unless you live in New York City or major metropolitan
Yeah.
areas, you know, having a car in order for you to get around is absolutely essential to go to doctor appointments, to go grocery shopping, wherever it may be. Now, we have a wide range of ages that we're discussing. My parents in their mid 60s, Connie, your parents in their late 80s. So someone in the late 80s, their driving ability are very different from somebody in their 60s. So you just need to be aware of, it's pretty common for me to find out that somebody's mother or father is like 94, 95, and they're still driving, right? They don't know where they live, but they are driving. So there is a personal and social responsibility that comes into the situation, right? And I'm not talking about social responsibility where you're flying on the plane and there's a 6-month-old baby crying. There's nothing much you can do about it. But there is a social responsibility to take away the keys, the car, whatever it may be, or create a situation where, you don't just lock your parents at home and tell them that's it. But just be aware that perhaps that's not the safest thing for everyone involved. Now, that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is also, we're not necessarily only talking about activities such as just being able to do things for yourself, like the ADLs, like dressing, washing, feeding. But how about just what do you do? I mean, you were just about retired, or you are retiring, and then what? What do you sit at home, watch TV all day long? So this is where it becomes important to make sure maybe you relocate the parents a little closer. Maybe you relocate to parents closer. Maybe instead of having a babysitter, maybe now you have your father or your mother help you with the kids. So they really become interpersonal dynamics. It's not like, okay, like applying for Social Security. The age comes, everyone applies. But you just need to be conscious of your parents' abilities and really be honest with yourself and be honest with them as well. Because if these are not the situation you can be honest about, then what?
What are we doing?
Exactly. It's pretty shocking.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, for example, the other thing, like my mom and dad, they're losing their hearing, right? It's the aging process. So my one sister lives up in North Jersey by you, and I live in Central Jersey. My mom and dad just live a couple of miles from me. So when we have to go to an event, a birthday party or something, a holiday up at my sister's, my parents, my dad still drives only very locally. He does not give us a hard time anymore. We're like, nope, we're taking you. So recently we had to go down to Delaware for my nephew's graduation. He got his PhD, which was awesome. But my dad didn't even think that he was going to drive. And I said to my dad, we're your personal chauffeur now. And we giggle about it, but he understands because we haven't taken his dignity away, but he realizes he doesn't hear well. So that's a sense that's lost that you should have when you're driving, right? You have to have the visual capacity, but you should be able to hear if someone's beeping their horn or something like that. The reflexes, right, Vlad, as we age, your reflexes get less and less. So all of these things, we have to have these conversations with our parents, but put things, if I'm hearing you correctly, or put things in place sooner rather than later when it becomes a big issue that they hit someone, right? So that they realize, okay, we're not taking all of your independence away, but let's navigate how we could take some of that responsibility so you could sit back and relax, but still be able to join in all of the activities and fun and holidays and all of those things. It's hard. It's really hard, lad, and I know you're seeing this now. But like I have to schedule taking my mom to the doctor because they can't hear what the doctor is saying. All of these things become part of our responsibility that's important. So I agree. You have to have these conversations with your parents. And if you're not, that's a problem. That is a problem. Yeah, it is. It's a real problem.
So they will come where they just won't be able to comprehend what you were telling them.
Yes.
Right? So then how do you plan at that particular point where you don't know if the other person's getting it or not? I mean, these are terrible situations, but I am in them with my clients, the ones who didn't listen or who just came to this later, and you have to educate, you have to tell them, or you have to help them make these really difficult decisions. And that's where it's nobody wants to make that decision, and they all look to you. Like, okay, well, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, and it's interesting, Vlad, that you're going through it now because I know intellectually, right? You're logical for your clients. That's your job, right?
Right.
That's what they pay you for. To think ahead for them because they don't know what's yet to come. That's your job because you've experienced it, like you said, with clients.
Right.
It's very cool now that you're experiencing it firsthand because all of a sudden, as we gain our experiences, as we personally age, it's another layer of, I think, emotional connection with our clients beyond the logical or intellect, right? So have you experienced that? I'm just curious.
You are 1,000% correct. And what I always say is no great doctor tries to cure himself. No great attorney tries to defend himself. This is why you can miss something. This is why they tell you if you're a doctor, you're an attorney, or you're a true professional, you need to have an alternative perspective. So with many of these planning aspects that I'm doing, I'm utilizing the members of my team to help me do the same planning, but now I take the emotion out of it because now I'm relying on somebody else to help and guide me in situations where I might not be making the right decision because I'm emotionally connected.
That's right.
So recognizing it becomes very important. So this is why I feel we've done it as a company and myself as a professional and then also as a son and a brother and a husband. I recognize our strengths and weaknesses and I'm able to address them accordingly.
Absolutely. Now, I mentioned taking my mom and dad to the doctor, right, things like that. And I know you're not there yet, but that's a big issue because you have doctor-parent privilege and all these things. What are some of the biggest pitfalls that you've seen your clients face as it relates to all of a sudden a mom or dad becoming ill?
Assumptions. Absolutely incorrect and terrible assumptions. Thinking that if you go with your parent to see a doctor, the doctor will automatically start disclosing the information to you. Or for you to be, let's say you're busy, you can't take your parents, and you'll think, I'll just call the doctor, I'll get the records, I'll see what's going on. According to HIPAA rules and laws, you are not allowed to do any of this. And let me just share a quick example. When I was going through, as you know, Connie, I have 2 children. And one of the first things that I did was to figure out who is going to be caregiver to my children, who is going to be the trustee of our estate. God forbid something happens to my wife and I. And you'd think that myself, with a great relationship that I have with my family, would be only natural for my sister to take the kids, and my parents help them. But and that would be an incorrect assumption because in the eyes of the law, if something happens to my wife and I, we don't have any kind of documentation in place, our kids would become the wards of the state. Mm-hmm. And then my parents and my sister would have to physically apply and fight and get an attorney to get the children from the state in order to be taken care of. Now, those fights could take anywhere from 6 to 9 months. So now, that's one piece, right? And I'm sharing these situations because they come up regularly. So now we had a client. It was his second marriage to a woman who was diabetic, and she went into and I apologize for some term. I'm not a doctor, so some terminologies are foreign to me. She went into some sort of sugar coma or sugar something. Something happened. He came home and she was on the floor. So he rushed her to the hospital, and the doctors are asking what's going on, what are the drugs that she's taking, and what caused it. And he's like, well, I'll just call the pharmacy and I'll get the medications. And he called the pharmacy, and the pharmacist is like, I can't talk to you. I can't give you any of this information. So here you are the husband of this person, and you can't do anything because she can't say, that's fine, talk to him while I'm here in coma. So you need to make sure that you enlist the services of an attorney who will help you to document, to put the healthcare proxies, the wills, the healthcare directives, whatever it may be, so that you can participate in the conversation. Without
like you said, without having someone in a coma, you trying to get information, and they're like, we don't know who you are, so there's no way we can do that. It's funny you say that. When we started to have to go to the doctor with my mom and dad, we immediately, and guys, it could be as simple as a form at the doctor's office, a HIPAA form, and my mom and dad listed all four, there's four in my family, four kids, listed all four of us so that all of us could call in and get updates or whatever we need. And the other thing I did, Vlad, was because I take them, I live locally, so I take them, and because I have my own business, I could schedule around things. It makes it a little easier.
Right.
So I take them to the doctor. The doctors have my phone numbers. I said, you can't call my parents because it's my schedule that matters, and they can't hear you, so you just call me. So all of that is stipulated with every one of their doctors, so they know when they call, Con, it's time for your mom's doctor. We're confirming your mom's appointment. So all of these things you do well in advance, like you said, before someone's in a coma or before someone is incapacitated to talk. There's all sorts of resources, right? And if you have no idea. Absolutely. And I would think, Vlad, should people go to an elder care attorney who specializes in like all the things we're talking about, the directives?
Yes.
And yeah?
Absolutely. I would, because it's like, having, a cavity and then going to see an optometrist, right? Because it's kind of the general area of your face. Well, it's not. You need to go speak to a specialist who specializes in this particular field, who will direct you and who will tell you the things you need. And they're the ones who ultimately will save you a boatload of time and money and aggravation and anxiety and pain of having to run around and figure out where and what should you do because you just failed to have a conversation with your parents or your siblings or your family about what would be the appropriate next step to just knowing where everything is.
Yeah, just knowing where everything is. Well said. Not only documentation, but what medicine. And it's funny when you said the medication. Again, my sister's a pharmacist, so maybe I had a leg up with this one. But she, which was smart, but she had my mom and dad list all. And here's the good news. I think why my mom and dad are still in such good shape. I'm knocking on wood right now. They are on like no medication. I think they take drops for glaucoma. My mom maybe is on heart medicine, and that's it. So they're healthy, that they don't have diabetes and all these other things. But with that said, they take vitamins and like the glaucoma drops. So we have a list for my mom and dad. Each of us have a list, and if the doctor changes any of the prescriptions or the dosages, we have to make sure that we update. But the four of us keep in contact, and I have it on my computer so that as changes come, you go in and change it. Then I go, especially if your mom or dad hasn't gone to the doctor in a year, I always print that off, because you never know if the doctor's going to say what new meds or old meds are your mom on. And then I go, I don't know if they changed anything. So we all keep up to date on that. And I always go with that paper in hand so that if it's asked for, you have it. So again, they're mindless though, Vlad, because you do a little bit of planning. I literally go to my computer, I hit print and off to the races I go. So
you're absolutely correct.
Now, can I ask you another question about the attorneys or finding the right people? I'm sure you have clients that come to you, about the money aspect, and then when you start deep diving into these other conversations, they do the old humada, right? What do I do?
Exactly.
Do you have like attorney, like say somebody says, well, good guys, that's great, an elder care attorney, how do you find them? Do you have reputable people that you recommend to your folks, or you give a couple so that they know who to hire?
We absolutely do, and it became one of the most difficult things for me to build early on when I started the practice. I mean, we've been in business for almost 10 years at this point, and now we have a CPA on staff, we have a paraplanner, we have wealth managers on staff, so we have resources, right? And attorney's business is obviously very different from our asset management business that we do. But we absolutely have very valuable partnership with an amazing elder care attorney that we've been working with very closely for this exact occurrence.
Yep.
Because it doesn't matter how much money we've earned or the income streams that we've created for our clients and annuities or life insurances we were able to cash in, if created trusts and whatnot, if it's not documented and it's not in the will and it's not just accounted for from legal perspective, then everything we've done just goes out the window.
And the attorneys can help with, like you said, the health directives, all of those components, down to, as silly as this sounds, how do your mom and dad or aunts and uncles, depending on who else you're a caregiver for, where do they want to be buried? Do they want to be cremated? What's their wishes for that? Is there money, like you said, the life insurance? Are there funds that are allocated specifically for that? All of these things need to be discussed, and it's great to talk to an asset manager, yes, to make sure the insurance is there. But again, we need to make sure that the attorney knows in the will that, yes, I want to be cremated or whatever it is, so that I think we have to honor especially the last leg of our parents' life or aunts and uncles. Again, I have elderly aunts that, we all kind of contribute and help with. But you want to honor that, I think. So again, having someone on hand, I figured you had someone you trusted that you share with your clients. So I wanted to ask that. The last one is the finances. I think that's the biggie, Vlad, to make sure that, again, like you said, the income streams are all there.
Yeah.
When should a child step in and say to a mom or dad, you know what, I think we need to zoom out a little bit. Let's meet with an expert just to look at all of your assets and will and make sure everything is done. All the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. When's a good time that you find with your clients?
Right now. Like literally right now. Whoever's listening to the show, pick up the phone, call your parents, be like, I need you to schedule a call with your financial guy. I need to know where everything is. And as you recall, I was a private banker with Wachovia Bank for many years until the bank collapsed. I used to have clients walk in with bank keys to safe deposit boxes. And they wouldn't be asking me like, where's the safe deposit box? They'd ask me, is this key to your bank? Because there was no record of where is the safe deposit box. And as you know, today everyone has some sort of safe in their house. But with elder people, they really don't, and they utilize bank vaults. So just keeping track of where things are becomes essential. And then I put it this way, right? You have 1-2 parents, something happens to them immediately. Just before hopefully they did the planning for you to eventually receive the inheritance and then the money, which doesn't happen overnight. You need to go through the funeral home, you need to do the burial, you need to start selling the house, selling the goods and whatever. But you need to do all of this with your own money because you don't have anybody, you can't go to your parents' bank and tell them, okay, give me the money, my parents are dead now, I have to bury them, so I need money for the plot, and yada, 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 yada. And no one seems to realize that. No one seems to. They just, it's not something people think about regularly, and they feel that, okay, this week is terrible, next month is July, so I'm going to be very busy, then it's August, okay, November. November sounds like a good month, but I'll talk to my parents about it. Last Thursday, one of our clients, her brother was hanging a TV outside for his new patio, and he had stomach aneurysm and died within half an hour. 67 years old, yet in the family there's 5 siblings. The oldest one has dementia, and they would expect that he would go, and this is the youngest one. And he was pretty healthy, and right on the spot, this guy is done and gone. So you need to, I don't try to be morbid, but we plan for the worst situations. Like in the investments, we plan what would your money look like if 2008 happens again. What does it look like if the market, falls 20% because now Iran is bombing somebody next to them, or we're bombing China, or China is bombing North Korea, whatever is the case. So you need to do the same thing with planning for your family members.
Yeah.
Not bombing them, talking to them.
I know. Yes, I thank you for editing that. Right, let's not bomb them.
Right.
See that's such a scary story, and I bet everybody listening is thinking either of a family member or a friend who had that exact situation where there was an aneurysm, or boom, within minutes, that person's no longer there. So we think November we can do this planning, and it doesn't always work out that way. It's funny, again, because my in-laws are downsizing and all of that, and we know that they have a will. And my husband is from Canada, and my in-laws actually from England migrated to Canada, now to the United States. But he still gets, my father-in-law still gets a pension from Canada. I said to my husband, have you talked to your mom and dad? Because that's an international situation now, that there's money out of the country. Even though it's Canada, it's still out of the country. Did they have an expert do their will? And my husband said, I don't know. So they're going through the sale of the house. So it's funny, and then that's what, again, I think of you, Vlad, often, because we do these shows. And it popped into my head with my husband, and he said, you know what, Con, they're overwhelmed with the sale of the house. But that's on his to-do list, to just sit and say, hey, listen, let's talk. Who did your will?
Right.
How is your money set up? Do you have trust set up? What's going to happen to the revenue or the money that's up in Canada? We don't know. We don't know. And here, I'm a licensed professional too, and these are important questions. And Vlad, I get it, what you said before. I'll do it in November. I'll do it after the sale of the house, because we're all so darn busy. Just like you have to pay attention when you're with your mom and dad in their home, you have to schedule the time to look at, do you have a power of attorney if something happens to them? Can you call their doctor, like your friend's example that the wife went into a coma? Do we have the pieces of paper in place so that we can advocate for them and make the calls that's necessary to make sure they're getting the care that they should be getting and the right medications and all of the things, versus going through trial and error? This is such an important topic. I know you're a family man. I'm a family person. I always want to be able to take care of, family, and all of my clients. I care about them and their families. So when you hear advice like this, we try to share it. And I'm blessed that I have you, Vlad, in my world. No, I am truly blessed, because you really are a wealth of information, and it's always, I love talking to you because you talk about things that are timely and important. But yeah, I have to be honest, you talk in a very normal language. I don't ever feel like I have to have a PhD to understand what you're saying. So again, I hope my listeners appreciate what you bring to the table, not only the expertise, but the heart.
Right.
I think you bring heart.
Right.
And I love that. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
We're out of time, but any last words of wisdom before I give your email and website and all that good stuff so people can find you?
So, as simple, yes. Feel free to email me, vlad@craner.com. Give us a call at the office at 201-374-4079. And one last piece of information I'd like to share with you. Even if you, for whatever reason, you can't get hold of your parents quickly enough to set anything up, just ask them, what's the phone number for your financial guy? Maybe you can give them a call and introduce yourself, not the other way around. And then when you get the paperwork from the attorney that you might enlist or the financial professional, you know what? Read through it, please, because attorneys are not mind readers. Mistakes do happen. Last year we had a family where we were introduced to them too late, because I usually reread the paperwork. I ask them for legal documents to look at it. We give it to our attorney to review, and it's complimentary. The family thought all the money from the parents, and mother was the only surviving member of that family, would go to the 3 siblings. Well, true, but the father, when he was alive and he set up the will, he made it that all the cash money goes to grandchildren and all the liquid assets go to children. So here's this family going, wait, no, that's not right. No, we do to get the money because the grandchildren were all minors, so none of them could receive the money. And they were like, no, this is wrong, this is incorrect. I'm like, well, you can call your father up. I don't know, maybe there is the collect number up in heaven. But read it. And I asked them, I said, did any of you read it? They go, no. What? That's why these documents exist, so you know what's going on. So keep it simple, stupid, please. Have the name of the attorney, the financial guy, the CPA, and the main doctor. From financial perspective, have a basic Excel spreadsheet. Like, these are the accounts, these are the institutions, these are the account values. And who is it going to? And do they have any safe deposit keys?
Absolutely, not the ring of them, right? It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that. My aunt, who also lives locally, she's elder as well, in her 80s, and never had kids, never married. So my cousins and I, we kind of help out, right? She's very independent. She's in wonderful shape. God bless her. But she deals with one of the local banks that happens to be one of my clients, and there's an investment rep for a little bit of money that she has, helps her out. So he had made a recommendation. He's a good guy. Made a recommendation, and she got very confused. So she said to him, and he knows me, can you talk to Connie? And he says, as long as I have your authorization, but I'm on power of attorney on her accounts. So, of course, all of those pieces of the puzzle are in place. And I talked to him, and we chatted, and we were giggling because his parents were going through the same thing my parents are going. We're all the same, right? We're all connected.
Right.
But again, we had that mechanism in place so that he could easily have talked to me. Whether he knew me or not, he wouldn't have been able to talk to me had my aunt not have those papers in place. So we really got to think ahead. And you just gave, I hope everybody was almost taking notes as we went through this, because then it's like, I got to talk about that. Oh, I got to observe that. Almost a little checklist. So Vlad, as always, thank you so much for your wealth of wisdom, but your kind approach to everything. I know I appreciate it. I hope my listeners do as well. One more time, Vlad's email is Vlad, VLAD, at Krainer, K like Karen, RANN Nancy, I'm sorry, one N, KRAN like Nancy, ER.com. And the website, if you'd like more information, and you have worksheets and stuff, don't you, on your website, Vlad?
Absolutely. We go through this. That's the first thing we do.
Yeah. So
to document everything.
Right. So Vlad's website for the business is Krainer.com. So check that out. There's a lot of useful info in addition to what we covered today, so that you guys could get your hands on and start to get things organized even before you meet with a Vlad. If you need to reach me, please reach out to me directly at my email address, Connie@WhitmanAssociates.com. If you need help with any type sales-related client communication, verbal communication, where you're trying to increase revenue for your organization, please call me. I really would love to help you out. And you know what the funny thing is? Like, Vlad has simplified the conversation with elder care or with parents who are aging. I really do help you simplify the conversations with your clients so that you can, so that if they understand what you're recommending and it's the right thing for them, you get yeses. And it really is as simple a formula as that. Vlad, thank you again. I really do enjoy our time together. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on with us.
It's a blessing to know you, and it's wonderful to be together.
Same. I feel the same. I really do. And I hope you guys will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that change, I know it's hard, man. I get it, but we got it. We have people like Vlad and all the other guests that I try to bring into your orbit to try to help you understand that change is easier than we often think. Sometimes you just need to raise your hands and ask for the help. So I hope that the show provides that perspective. Thank you for joining us, Vlad. Thank you for your wonderful insight. You guys, a real pleasure, too. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I really hope you have a wonderful, inspiring week, and please take Vlad's recommendations and advice. Observe your parents and start having these difficult conversations while they're of sound mind and body. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.